Chief Justice Andrew Cheung and Secretary for Justice Paul Lam defend the city's judicial independence and rule of law against criticisms over high-profile national security trials. Dozens die in a high-speed train crash in Spain as the derailment is deemed really strange. And U.S. President Donald Trump links his claims on Greenland to not being awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Good evening. You're watching Cable News. I'm Jeremy Zhu. Hong Kong's legal profession formally opened its 2026 judicial year today with a ceremony that saw senior justice figures robustly defend the city's judicial independence and rule of law, countering what they labeled as unfounded and politicized criticism against recent high-profile national security trials. Quentin Yang reports.
The annual event commenced at Edinburgh Square, where Chief Justice Andrew Cheung inspected Police Guard of Honor before leading judges and legal dignitaries into Hong Kong City Hall. In his keynote address, Cheung directly tackled unfounded commentary from overseas politicians regarding high-profile national security trials, including that of convicted former media tycoon Jimmy Lai.
Bold and unsubstantiated allegations of this kind merely indicate that the criticisms may themselves be influenced by political or other extraneous considerations. Many of us may be forgiven for growing weary of simplistic assertions that the rule of law is dead whenever a court reaches a result one finds unpalatable. The rule of law in Hong Kong is far more robust and enduring than the outcome of any single case. It cannot be that the rule of law is alive one day, dead the next, and resurrected on the third, depending on whether the government or another party happens to prevail in court on a particular day.
He reserved his strongest criticism for external cause to sanction judges or interfere with due process, equating such threats to bribery and corruption as both aim to subvert justice. Echoing this defense, Secretary for Justice Paul Lam challenged critics to identify any indication in national security judgments that irrelevant factors had influenced the courts.
Let me ask, in those national security cases, is there anything in the judgment which would suggest that the judges have taken into account any extraneous consideration, or that somehow their independence has been compromised? I'm again very confident that the answer must be a resounding no.
He further emphasized that protecting national security and preserving Hong Kong's free, open society are not contradictory, noting that recent global events challenging sovereignty, including China's, serve as a wake-up call to such threats. Quentin Yang, Cable News.
The Fire Services Department has launched a 2-month citywide inspection of fire safety systems in older buildings, stressing that such maintenance must not coincide with major renovations. The campaign will target 1,500 residential and composite buildings built in or before 1987, particularly those with lapsed annual checks, known defects, or deactivated systems. Inspectors will verify the operation of fire alarms and hose reels. Any violations will result in enforcement and orders for swift rectification. The department warns that fire system repairs and major renovations should not overlap. The increased activity and materials during renovations make functional fire systems essential for resident safety. All defects must be fixed before renovation work begins. Property managers are reminded to inspect systems regularly and assist owners with any faults. With the Basic Housing Units Ordinance soon taking effect, tenants of subdivided flats at Yiwa Building in Shan Shui Po were told by the landlord to move out for the flat renovations. The Housing Bureau said it would assist residents with accommodation arrangements. Evelyn Bai has the story.
Half of the Yiwa building's more than 200 subdivided flats have already been vacated, and the remaining tenants were asked to move out by March 1st, when the ordinance takes effect. A long-term tenant paying $3,500 a month said she's anxious about having to move, and she has waited a long time for transitional housing, but those units are often far from work. This tenant has refused to move, saying her lease runs until April and she does not want to relocate to outlying areas. To eradicate subpar homes, the ordinance required subdivided units to be at least 8 square meters, have an independent toilet, as well as meet fire and structural safety standards. The building changed hands last year. The new owner plans to reclaim the shoebox homes to refurbish them into basic housing units. Residents met the new owner in a meeting last Friday to request more time to relocate. Government staff also attended to explain the options for transitional housing. The new owner has provided an additional 3 to 12 months grace period for moving out. The Housing Bureau said it is highly concerned about the case, deploying 6 subdivided unit district service teams to contact tenants. As of last Thursday, they had contacted 90 tenants, 60 applied for transitional housing, and 30 were still deciding or arranging next steps. Evelyn Bai, Cable News.
At least 39 people have died in a train collision in southern Spain, and over 150 more have been injured in the country's worst rail crash in more than a decade. Evelyn Bai tells us more.
Following the crash, an official in fluorescent jacket was instructing passengers to remain in their seats in the darkened carriages, and those with first aid training to keep watch over fellow passengers. Footage from the scene showed emergency responders searching for commuters and pulling them from twisted carriages lying on their side under the glare of floodlights. Some passengers climbed out of smashed windows. The accident happened around 7 p.m. local time, when a high-speed train traveling from Malaga to Madrid derailed under Ademuz, crossing onto the other track where it hit an oncoming train. The second train, traveling at around 200 kilometers per hour, was also derailed and went down an embankment. About 400 people were on board both trains, most of them Spaniards, traveling back to and from Madrid after the weekend. The section of the track involved was renewed in May. The cause for the crash is not yet known. Spanish Transport Minister Oscar Puente described the incident as extremely strange, as officials launched an investigation. All rail services between Madrid and Andalusia were suspended. Spain's high-speed rail network is the second largest in the world, behind China, connecting more than 50 cities across the country. Evelyn Bai, Cable News.
At least 18 people have been killed in Chile and 50,000 evacuated as massive wildfires have broken out across the country. 2 regions have been declared disaster zones. In Penco, a town in Chile's central Biobío region, wildfires have reached the roadside, engulfing the area in flames. Thick plumes of smoke rose high into the sky as firefighters aimed water jets in an effort to halt the spread. Multiple buildings have been burned through. A nearby hospital was shrouded in smoke, with firefighters and medical staff assisting in the evacuation of elderly and wheelchair-using residents. Local residents described the fires as completely out of control, recalling how they found themselves trapped in their homes late at night and had to flee immediately. After a whole night, some homes were still ablaze. The mayor of Penco expressed frustration that central government aid has been slow to arrive. Charred bodies have been found inside homes, along roads, and in vehicles. By Sunday morning, more than 20 separate fires were burning across central and southern Chile. The worst hit areas are the Biobío and neighboring Ñuble regions, where fires have consumed nearly 8,500 hectares so far, leading authorities to declare a state of catastrophe. The South American nation has been experiencing a severe heat wave in recent days, with extreme heat warnings issued across much of the country. Temperatures in the past 2 days reached 38 degrees Celsius, and strong winds have fanned the flames, making firefighting efforts extremely difficult. The European Union is mounting a two-front response to U.S. President Donald Trump's threat of steep tariffs over Greenland, urgently seeking a diplomatic off-ramp whilst readying a massive €93 billion counterstrike. Meanwhile, Trump linked his claims on Greenland to not being awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Quentin Yang reports.
In an emergency Sunday meeting, ambassadors from the bloc's 27 member states agreed to prioritize a final diplomatic push this week, but have simultaneously approved preparations to unleash a punishing package of retaliatory tariffs. The move comes after Trump, who accused Denmark of failing to protect Greenland from Russian threats, stated he would impose a 10% tariff on 8 European nations over Greenland row. The U.S. leader also linked his claims on Greenland to not being awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in a letter he sent to Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre. Considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars. Plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, Trump said. Options on the table for the EU now includes a pre-approved package of tariffs targeting €93 billion worth of American exports, covering iconic goods like Kentucky bourbon, Wisconsin dairy products, and motorboats. This package, suspended after a trade deal last summer, can be automatically reinstated as early as February 6th. Held in reserve is the more severe, never-before-used anti-coercion instrument. Championed by France and dubbed the trade bazooka, it could restrict U.S. companies from EU public contracts and investments, though its lengthy activation process makes it a last resort. For now, the bloc is focusing its efforts on diplomacy, aiming to use the threat of retaliation as leverage ahead of planned talks at the World Economic Forum in Davos this week, where Trump is set to deliver a keynote address and meet EU diplomats. After that, EU leaders are set to convene another summit in Brussels on Thursday to formalize a unified reaction. Quentin Yang, Cable News.
China's economy grew 5% last year, meeting the official target of around 5%, driven by record exports in the world's second-largest economy, despite facing a complex and uncertain domestic and global economic environment. Evelyn Bai has the details.
The economic momentum weakened in the fourth quarter of 2025, with gross domestic product up 4.5% year-on-year, 0.3 percentage points lower than the third quarter and the slowest pace in 3 years, according to data released by the National Bureau of Statistics. In December, the value added of industrial enterprises above designated size grew by 5.2% from a year earlier, exceeding the market expectation of 5%. Retail sales underperformed, growing 0.9% year-on-year. For the full year, value-added industrial output grew 5.9%. Total retail sales of consumer goods rose 3.7%, while fixed asset investment and property development investment fell by 3.8% and 17.2%, respectively, both weaker than expected. Kang Yi, head of the NBS, said net exports contributed 1/3 of economic growth in 2025, the highest share since 1997. He acknowledged that the economy faces problems and challenges, including strong supply and weak demand, but added that the country has the foundations and conditions to keep growth on a steady, improving track throughout 2026. The NBS said the government will continue to step up efforts to boost domestic demand. Final consumption expenditure contributed 52% to economic growth, making it the main driver of growth. China also clocked its lowest birth rate on record, 5.63 births per 1,000 people last year, while the population fell for the 4th straight year, deepening a demographic challenge that could drag on the world's second-largest economy for decades to come. Evelyn Bai, Cable News.
Now let's take a look at the stock market. The Hang Seng Index ended the day down 281 points. Top active stocks of the day, Alibaba was down $5.80. Tencent was down $7.50. SMIC was down $2.20, and Meituan was down $1.50. Foreign exchange against the Hong Kong dollar, Euro 9.06, Australian dollar 5.22. Onto the weather now. Local winds will strengthen tomorrow and temperatures will fall appreciably at night. It will be mainly cloudy and persistently cold from Wednesday to Friday. The minimum temperatures will be around 11 and 12 degrees in the urban areas and a couple of degrees lower in the new territories. That's our news tonight. I'm Jeremy Zhu. Thanks for watching and good night.